Today was my birthday. Not that anyone remembered, at least, no one who should have. My phone sat untouched beside my pillow. No missed calls. No new texts. No happy birthday from the man I was supposed to call mine. I stayed in bed a little longer than usual, my eyes fixed on the ceiling as if answers might appear in the cracks of old plaster. This day had always felt like it should matter, but at 26, I was starting to realize that expecting magic was just setting myself up for disappointment. And yet, somehow, it still stung. The smell of coffee drifted up from downstairs, warm and rich. I dragged myself out of bed, threw on a t-shirt, and padded down to the kitchen barefoot. Jake was already there, shirtless, hair damp from a shower, flipping pancakes like he owned the morning. "Look who decided to rise from the dead," he said, flashing that grin that always seemed too wide, too easy. I rubbed my eyes. "What time is it?" "Almost 9, Jake said, stacking pancakes onto a plate like he was preparing for an army. "I made enough to feed your mood." Jake was my stepbrother. Well, technically. Our parents married just over a year ago, throwing us together like mismatched puzzle pieces. He was 30, rugged in a way that didn't try too hard, tall, lean, eternally shirtless unless someone forced him otherwise. A guy who walked into a room and never had to try to be noticed. "Smells good," I said, sitting at the counter. He poured a cup of coffee and slid it toward me. "You sleep like shit when you're mad. Dream about your boyfriend screwing up again?" I sipped. It burned my tongue, but I didn't care. "He forgot my birthday." Jake paused. "Oof. That's all you've got?" "Well, I could say something worse about him, but I'm trying not to ruin your morning," Jake said, tossing a dish towel over his shoulder. "Besides, you deserve better than some pretty guy who can't even set a phone reminder." I watched him move, fluid, confident. He'd always had that air about him, like nothing could really touch him. It made me jealous. It also made it hard not to look. Too hard, sometimes. Jake turned, holding out a small box, wrapped in black paper. "By the way, happy birthday." My brow furrowed. "Seriously? Open it." Inside was a silver chain. Simple, masculine. Not flashy, but exactly my style. It rested against my palm like it belonged there. "I noticed you were eyeing it online last month. Figured you wouldn't buy it for yourself." I stared at him, surprised. "How did you?" "I pay attention." He leaned across the counter, locking eyes. "Someone should." I swallowed. His words lingered in the air longer than they should have. I didn't know what to say, so I nodded and slipped the chain over my head. It felt heavier than it looked. "Thanks. That's really thoughtful." Jake shrugged. "You're not as hard to read as you think." We ate in silence for a moment, the only sound the faint sizzle from the stove. My eyes kept wandering to the curve of his shoulder, the way his skin caught the sunlight coming through the window. It wasn't the first time I'd looked too long. It wouldn't be the last. "You working today?" I asked. He shook his head. "Took the day off. Figured I'd hang with the birthday boy, unless you had plans." I laughed dry. "Yeah, a long list of them." Jake smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then it settled. "We're doing something tonight. Movie, drinks, something. Your pick." "You don't have to." "I want to." His voice dropped on the last word. It landed between us like a challenge I didn't know how to answer. The air shifted. I felt it. He must have too. Because for a split second neither of us moved. Just stared. Then Jake stood abruptly and grabbed his coffee. "Anyway, I'll be outside if you want to join." He walked out to the backyard, the screen door thudding shut behind him. I sat there, fingers around the warm cup, the silver chain cold against my skin. My chest felt tight in a way I couldn't name, not yet. But something had cracked open. Jake had remembered. Jake had cared. Not just in the obligatory stepbrother way. No, this was personal, intimate, and that scared me more than being forgotten ever could. Evening settled over the house like a soft blanket, but there was nothing comforting about it. The sky outside had dimmed into a stormy blue, and Jake and I were still the only two in the house, exactly how he planned it. He handed me a glass of whiskey, the good kind he usually hoarded for special occasions. "To a birthday worth remembering," he said, eyes locked on mine as he raised his glass. "To surprises," I answered, voice quieter than I intended. We clinked glasses. The amber liquid burned down my throat but settled like truth in my chest. Jake had changed into a black t-shirt that hugged his chest and jeans that hung low on his hip. I'd noticed. Too much. And despite how wrong it felt to want him, I couldn't stop the current that pulled me closer each hour we spent alone. We moved to the couch, sitting side by side with a little too much space between us. The TV was on, but we weren't really watching. Our laughter came easily at first, teasing jabs, bad impressions, shared jokes only we seemed to find funny. But underneath it all was a pressure, swelling just beneath the surface. I checked my phone again. Still nothing. My boyfriend had gone silent all day. Jake noticed. "You don't have to keep hoping," he said softly, not looking at me. "He's probably busy. He forgot, man. If he wanted to call, he would've." Jake's voice was calm, but there was a hard edge underneath. "You deserve more than crumbs. I'm not trying to start a fight." "I'm not fighting," Jake said. "I'm telling the truth." The room was quiet again. Not peaceful, tight waiting. Jake shifted closer, resting his arm across the back of the couch. His fingers brushed my shoulder. I didn't move. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure. Do you think I'm a bad person?" The question caught me off guard. "No. Why would you say that?" "Because lately, I think about things I shouldn't. Want things I shouldn't." He paused. "And I don't know if it makes me a hypocrite. Or just honest." I turned to him. His eyes, usually light, were darker now. "Like what?" "Like how you looked at me this morning. Like how you're looking at me right now." My breath caught. "Jake. You don't have to lie," he interrupted. "I see it. I've seen it for a while. Hell, maybe I started it." I couldn't speak. My thoughts spun like a carousel, each more dangerous than the last. Jake leaned in, slow, deliberate. "Tell me to stop." I didn't. And then he kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't testing. It was bold, full of all the questions we'd been too scared to ask. His mouth tasted like whiskey and want. I kissed him back before I could think better of it. When he pulled away, his eyes searched mine, waiting for a reaction. "I shouldn't have done that," he said. But he didn't sound sorry. "I didn't stop you." Jake exhaled, frustrated. "This is messed up." "Yeah. But it felt real." "Yeah," I said again, throat tight. The distance between us disappeared as he leaned in again. This time slower. This time deeper. My hand slid to his chest, fingers gripping the fabric of his shirt. His arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer until there was no space left to lie to ourselves. His breath was hot against my neck. "You ever wonder if maybe we're not as different as we thought?" "All the time," I whispered. The TV still flickered in the background, forgotten. The only light in the room came from it, casting us in shadows. Our movements grew more urgent, mouths exploring, hands learning. His fingers slipped under my shirt. I didn't stop him. Clothes shifted. Touches deepened. Skin met skin. There was no shame in the moment. Only heat. Need. Permission. He took control, but not in the way I expected. Every move was careful. Every gesture was asking a question I answered with my body. It wasn't just lust. It was release. Connection. Something deeper, darker, more real than I'd had in months. After, we lay tangled on the couch in the silence, breath shallow, sweat cooling on our skin. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding so loud it drowned out my thoughts. Jake broke the silence. "We crossed a line." "I know." He looked at me, eyes conflicted. "But I don't regret it." "Neither do I." He rested his hand on my chest, where my heart still raced. "This can't happen again." "Why not?" I asked. "Because I'm not gay," he said. "And you have a boyfriend." I turned to him. You're the one who kissed me. He nodded. Yeah. And I'd do it again. We didn't speak after that. We just lay there, side by side, the weight of what we'd done pressing into the silence. The screen on my phone finally lit up. A text from my boyfriend. Sorry, crazy day. Happy birthday, babe. Too little. Too late. I didn't answer. The morning after didn't feel like morning. It felt like fallout. I woke up with Jake's arm draped over my waist, his breath slow and warm against the back of my neck. The couch blanket had fallen halfway to the floor. My shirt was gone. So was his. I lay there still, trying not to breathe too loud, as if that might undo what we'd done. But nothing could. The room still smelled like sweat and skin and something dangerously close to affection. Jake stirred behind me. His arm flexed before he pulled it back slowly, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to touch me anymore. You awake? He asked, voice low, hoarse. Yeah. He sat up, rubbing his face with both hands. The silence between us stretched like a rubber band pulled to its limit. You okay? He asked, his tone unreadable. I don't know, I answered honestly. Jake nodded like he understood but didn't know what to do with the truth. Last night, that wasn't planned. I figured. But it wasn't a mistake either. He glanced at me. Not for me. I didn't reply. I didn't know how to. Jake stood, grabbing his shirt from the floor and slipping it on. The muscles in his back moved like liquid under his skin, and it was impossible not to watch him. Even now. Even with everything tangled between us. I need coffee, he muttered, heading to the kitchen. I sat up slowly, my body sore in ways I didn't want to think about. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. A follow-up text from my boyfriend. Call me later? The shame hit fast. A cold spike in my gut. I'd cheated. I'd crossed the line I'd promised I never would. But all I could think about was Jake. I followed him into the kitchen. He didn't look at me as he poured 2 mugs. You gonna tell him? Jake asked suddenly. I blinked. What? Your boyfriend. Are you going to tell him what happened? I don't know. Jake handed me a cup without making eye contact. You should. He deserves that, at least. I leaned against the counter, watching steam rise from the mug. You regret it now? No, he said quickly. That's the problem. We stood there, the silence thick with unfinished sentences. Jake finally turned to me. I've never done anything like that before. Not with a guy. Not with anyone who mattered like that. My heart tripped. I mattered. You matter too much, he said, voice low. That's why this scares the hell out of me. I took a sip, my hands trembling slightly. You're not the only one. Jake laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. I thought I had myself figured out. Straight, simple. Keep things casual, no mess. Then you move in, and suddenly everything's noise. It's not just you, I said. I haven't felt something real in months. Not with him. I've been pretending. Jake leaned back against the fridge, arms crossed. So what now? I don't know, I said again. What do you want? He stared at the floor, jaw tight. I want yesterday back. And I want to do it all again. But without the guilt. Without the part where we pretend it didn't mean anything. I swallowed hard. So don't pretend. You're with someone, he said. I can't be your secret. You weren't a secret last night, I said. You were the only real thing. We didn't touch. Not this time. But the air between us was as thick as it had been in the dark. I'm scared this screws up everything, Jake admitted. Our parents, this house, us. I'm scared too, I said. But I've been scared and lonely for a long time. Last night felt like coming home. Jake looked at me like he wanted to kiss me again, but didn't trust himself. He sighed and turned away. I've got to clear my head. He grabbed his keys from the table and left without another word. The door closed behind him like a full stop. I sat alone at the counter, coffee cooling in my hand, the chain he gave me still heavy around my neck. My phone buzzed again. Are we okay? The screen read. No. We weren't. But maybe now, for the first time in months, I was. 2 days passed. 2 days of silence, of half-written texts and unsent draft. Jake hadn't come home the night he left. I didn't ask where he went. Part of me didn't want to know, and part of me couldn't stop imagining all the wrong answers. The house was too quiet. The couch still smelled like him. I caught myself tracing the seam of the cushion where we lay, half expecting his voice to echo back. I finally called my boyfriend that evening. His voice was cheery, like nothing was wrong. "Hey, birthday boy. Sorry I missed your actual day. Work's been hell." I almost said, "It's okay," the automatic response. But I caught myself. "No, it's not okay," I said. "You forgot me." There was a pause. Then a weak chuckle. "Babe, come on. It was one day. One day I needed you," I snapped, and suddenly all the weight of the week came pouring out. "You didn't call, you didn't message until it was too late. You weren't there for me." He sighed. "Are we really doing this right now?" "Yes. Because I slept with someone else." Silence. Sharp. Final. "You what?" "I cheated," I said, voice even. "It wasn't revenge. It wasn't planned. But it happened, and I'm not sorry it did." "Who was it?" he demanded, voice breaking into static and rage. I hesitated. "Jake. The stepbrother?" His disbelief snapped like a whip. "You slept with your stepbrother?" "Yes." "Jesus Christ." He laughed bitter. "So you're just full-on twisted now?" I took a deep breath. "No. I'm just done lying to myself." He cursed under his breath. "We're done." "I know." He hung up. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel broken. Just quiet. I found Jake in the backyard that night. He was sitting alone by the fire pit, staring into orange flames like they held the answers he needed. His face lit up in the glow, sharp jawline, tired eyes, a man who looked like he'd fought himself and lost. "You left," I said. "I needed space. Did you find what you were looking for?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah. I found out I don't want to run anymore." I sat beside him, the fire between us a soft barrier. "I ended it." Jake turned. "You serious?" He deserved the truth. "And what about you?" I met his eyes. "I don't know what I am anymore. But I know what I felt with you wasn't just heat. It wasn't just a mistake." Jake threw a stick into the fire, watching it crack and burn. "You ever think maybe we're not supposed to fit this way? That maybe this thing between us is just too much?" "All the time," I said. He looked over at me. "But you're still here." "So are you." The fire popped, sparks rising like fireflies into the night. Jake leaned back in his chair, legs stretched, shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. "When I kissed you, I didn't know what would happen," he said. "But I haven't stopped thinking about it since." "I haven't either. I told myself it was just curiosity," he continued. "Just timing. Just need. But that's a lie. It's always been more." We were quiet again. But this time, the silence wasn't empty. It was full of breath, closeness, possibility. Jake reached out, slowly, carefully. His fingers touched mine, and I didn't pull away. "You scare me," he said softly. "You ground me." We sat like that for a while, just breathing in the shared stillness. Finally, he said, "I don't want this to be a secret." "Then it won't be." "What about everyone else?" "They'll adjust." Jake looked at me with something between hope and fear. "And what if I mess it up?" "Then we fix it. Together." A small smile broke across his face. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," I said. "But it's real." He laced his fingers with mine fully, squeezing once like a promise. "So what now?" I leaned back, eyes on the stars. "Now we stop pretending we're just family. And start figuring out what we really are." Jake nodded. "Deal." The fire burned low as the night wrapped around us. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own life. I felt seen, wanted, whole. And no matter what came next, judgment, doubt, fear, I knew one thing for sure. It was better to live in an uncomfortable truth than die slowly in a perfect lie.